Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to record today. It's a special day in my daughter's life, so I appreciate your understanding and for your flexibility. But let's jump in. So, tonight we're going to be talking about professional learning and your role as that leader in your school as you're moving forward into the school library in your specific area. So, we're going to be looking at that, and I will also try to review, if we have time, your just a brief overview of your portfolio for your capstone that you'll be entering very soon. If you're not already in there, several of you are in my 693 class as well. So just a way to touch that and get us connected. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why are school librarians expected to lead professional learning? Do you have any thoughts about that? Have you seen librarians in your past and in your experiences lead PD? We're going to talk about that in more detail. And the first place to look at is this. And no, I don't want you to read this whole slide. Way too much text on this slide today. But what I do want you to notice is how much yellow is there. These are our preparation standards. They've been revised, and this is where we started. All of that yellow talks about professional development and the role of the school librarian in doing that, in facilitating it, in supporting it, in determining what our teachers need to know and where they're headed in as far as professional learning goes. So we're going to look through that, and the goal today is just to see how prevalent that verbiage is. If we look at our updated evaluation standards for North Carolina, this would be your summative evaluation. You'll notice that standard one is the school library media coordinator demonstrates leadership. And a piece of that is going to include, see, all of this professional learning. And it gives you the opportunity. You notice it says that under developing, to have a collaborative media program that focuses or on student learning, but also to have in the proficient area, those aligns all components of the school library media program with state and local standards, research practices, and you notice down here at the bottom, provides leadership in collaborating with teachers and to help support what's going on in their instruction so that they can use what you've taught them to impact student learning. So the role that you have, even if you don't touch students on a daily basis, those secondary folks, you're still impacting students through the work that you do with the adult learners in the building. So making sure that we're offering opportunities to teach teachers things that they might need to know to put into their own instruction to impact students and to help them be more successful. Now, we think of that really traditionally in the form of technology, right? What technologies can we help teachers use effectively in their own practices? But it also comes across in lots of other things. So maybe resources, different print resources, but different online resources that they can use in their instruction to help connect students with that level of understanding helps increase that role. If we look at the accomplished rating of your evaluation, you'll notice that it provides leadership to the school community, creating that 21st century learning environment. That's technology. How are we going to provide teachers with the information they need to know to be able to put that into their instruction and help students? At distinguished, it leaves the school level and actually works at the district level, the state level, or the national level. So when you are presenting at conferences, that's where you're going to kind of meet that distinguished level as you're evaluating yourself through those expectations. Now, the new and revised standards, you'll notice instead of standard one being about leadership, it's now standard five. And that standard talks about leadership, advocacy, and professional responsibility. It talks about professional network, and specifically 5.1 focuses on engaging in ongoing professional learning, where you deliver professional development. Do you notice there was the word deliver? Professional development designed to meet diverse needs of all members of the learning community. Those are your teachers. Those are the adult learners in your building. If you're working at this accomplished level. If you're working at the distinguished level, then you're going to be looking at other media specialists in your district, at NCSLMA, if you're in North Carolina, at your state level library conferences, as well as, at maybe technology conferences at NC TIES. So if you have not looked at the opportunity to present at these conferences, that's definitely something I would put on your goals. It's a wonderful way to get yourself engaged at a higher level and connecting with the others in your field, if that makes sense. So at this point, do you think it's important that we learn about professional development? I think the answer is yes. I think I'm imagining you're all shaking your heads. That's right. It's a really important piece of what we should be doing as school librarians in the building. Now, sometimes you are limited. You're limited by the restrictions of your administrative team. I understand. But we should always strive to work in this area. And one thing that you may have to advocate for is the time and opportunity to do that with your faculty. And so we're going to talk today about these different opportunities and creative ideas that you can have to connect with them. You don't always have a full house at the staff meeting, right? While we may ask for 5 minutes to promote some type of activity, we may not have that full capacity to be able to do that. So sometimes we have to get creative. And so we'll be talking about some of those things today. And I have an activity that where we will leave with a tool for your toolbox to have some ideas about ways that we can communicate, market, and provide PD to our students in the building. Or not students, I'm sorry, adults in the building, adult learners. So we're going to unpack those things as we move forward. The next thing I also want to talk about is where, once you get to this librarian role and this librarian level, where do you actually get professional learning opportunities as well? Okay, so let's start there. After graduation, you have to learn things to be able to teach others. Yes? Many of you are going to be in larger districts and your district level librarians. I have been one of those. Karen Meyer has been a district level director at Winston-Salem Forsyth. I was in Guilford. We provided really good training opportunities that would offer CEU credits for our librarians in the district. Your larger districts will all provide that, and some of your smaller ones, if you have a good leader in the library area. That isn't always the case. We have some districts around North Carolina and in other states that they do not have a district level director of media services, so they don't have a constant way of getting credit in your professional area. So there are a few places I want to share with you. One of those is, well, when your links don't work, guess what we do, guys? We bring over our Canvas shell for today. And on our Canvas shell, you'll notice it says Professional Learning Resources Shared. All of these are linked in the shell. So when you click on the first one, this is NCAT, okay, the North Carolina Center for Advancement of Teaching. Other states will have this as well, but NCAT really does a really great job of providing PD, not only for teachers, but also for school librarians. I've been to several of these trainings. I guarantee there's someone in this class that has also been to NCAT. They have a facility in Western Carolina at Western University's campus, not far from it, and then one out at the Outer Banks. They house you, they feed you, and they train you, and you leave really energized and excited about the next thing that there is to do. So always check there to see if there's any opportunities that you might want to check out for your school libraries. All right. Another is the Library of Congress. They offer professional development at different focus levels, right? And you can sign up for that. So most are online. You'll notice on-site workshops, and there's also some self-paced online modules. And all of these you can usually send to your district to get those CEU credits. So if you've not been in education before, CEUs are those ongoing credits that you will need to earn to keep your license relevant and updated. You will need to get a certain number of those each over a 5-year period to keep your license current. And so ways that you can obtain those are going to the conferences we mentioned earlier, where you can get the paperwork to get your CEU credits, but also here at these different sites that I'm giving you. NCDPI, that's our public instruction area, and talking to those of you out of state, your state should offer something similar. They have online professional learning opportunities. They usually sponsor and cover conferences and events that DPI sponsors. Many times they're here at the university. We sponsor several of those for DPI. And it gives you those different standards for professional learning that are linked here at the bottom. So definitely check out DPI's website. There's another link here from DPI. I tried to just keep it updated about specific, not just not just kind of an overview, but specific things that they're offering. And you'll have to look down. This is the whole 25-26 schedule. And then NCSLMA is another great place. They offer some really wonderful, they've got the Brew Crew. I was talking to one of the media specialists in my class this morning, and she was telling me about the different professional development opportunities that she's a part of as far as being connected with NCSLMA. So please check those out and look for opportunities to get involved. Now, on the technology side, NC Ties offers a virtual conference in the fall and usually an in-person conference in the spring. Once you're finished, you get your online credits, take it to your county, and you can apply for credits that way for your CEUs. And then IASL has a professional development library and support for lots of different things as well. That's another international association of school librarianship. So if you get a chance to go to one of those conferences, you'll get to travel and have a good time. So are there opportunities for you to grow professionally once you leave us here at UNCG? The answer is 100% yes. And we have all of those things linked for you to try out in your Canvas shell for today. Anybody excited about trying some of those? If you're watching the recording, stop here and enjoy some of those. Kind of browse around and see what you might want to put on your outline for goals. You're going to put that as a part of your portfolio when you finish up. Maybe it's to attend some of these conferences. Many of them will also offer a first-time attendee grant. I encourage you, I can't tell you how much, to apply for those attendee grants. That will usually cover your registration, your travel, even a food stipend. I've gotten one of those before when I was fresh out of the program. Definitely something I can't encourage enough for you to be able to do. So anybody excited about that? I would be. Now, when we do professional development, there's a few things we need to know. One of those things is, what do our teachers in the building need to know? So you have to do some kind of needs assessment. Would you agree? Okay. The other thing that you might want to think through is how are the faculty in your building using you as the school librarian? Are they using you to troubleshoot things? Are they using you as a babysitter? Are they using you for story time? How are they using you in the building? So we have to kind of figure these things out, because we're also going to use that data to talk with our administration, to advocate for maybe not having a fixed schedule, or to advocate for ways that you can connect with your faculty differently. And you can't do it if you're doing all this time. So how do we determine how much time we're spending supporting each grade level? How do we gather data to help inform us? Well, as a director of media services in Guilford County, and as a librarian myself, I have sat in your shoes. I have done the things that you're doing on the daily basis. I've had struggles with classroom management. I've had to troubleshoot ways to find time with my teachers because I was teaching classes when they were planning. I've had to overcome some of the same challenges that you are experiencing. So one of the things that I put together for myself to help me kind of track and get some data and be efficient at it was a simple Google form. Now, I'm going to share this with you. I have the template for you to be able to make this for your, or to download a copy for yourself when we're finished. I cannot promise you it will work from your view, so I'm going to ask for your feedback in that. And if not, I'll make sure I update that by next week. But it works for my view, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it will work for your view. And the reason I'm telling you that is because it's in the Google, and you know what happens. I think I put this in my personal account, but just to make sure. What you will notice is I have a quick form. Now, you guys have created Google Forms for lots of things, digital forms. You can save them on your phone as an app, and this is exactly what I did. I put this on my phone because it could take me about 5 minutes to answer. I could do it as I was walking down the hall after visiting a classroom, or as I was returning my students to their rooms as they were talking to me at the car rider line. Anybody experience those things? But I had 5 quick questions. So the first thing was the date. I had that something that would open up quick. And again, this works really well on your cell device or your tablet or your laptop, whatever you happen to be at. The other thing I would pull is I would say, I was just talking with fifth grade. So what grade am I going to spend more time with? And in that, and you notice these are clicks, they were talking to me at car rider duty, and they asked me to pull resources, or did they ask me to troubleshoot technology, or did they ask me to um, plan and collaborate? I hope that's the case, right? Did they schedule a room or some technology that I need to bring to their space? Did they want to connect with me about something we were doing on the MTAC committee or in a committee work? Excuse me. So what did they ask me to do? For this case, I'm going to put troubleshoot technology. And then down here at the bottom, I might need to say, just really quickly, go by and fix Miss Smith's printer. I don't know, makes just a quick for this one. And I submit it. You see, that took me like 0 time. Did you notice? It did not take me but just a minute. I can do that as I'm walking down the hall. Now, you may think, why is that important? Why is that important? Is because now look at my data. I can see, and of course, I've got lots of data in here from across different semesters, but I can also see quickly what grade level am I supporting the most? Am I spending more time supporting my fifth grade teachers? Are they utilizing the library more? My goodness, I am not seeing eighth grade, or I'm not seeing the sixth grade hardly at all. They have the smallest piece of my pie here. So how can I market my resources more broadly to my sixth grade teachers? Make sense? Who's utilizing the library and its resources the most? This fifth grade class. I'm spending most of my time supporting my fifth grade teachers. You can also break that up depending on how your school is structured and do the departments, right? Social studies department or science department, ELA, whatever you need to do, you can break it down that way as well, depending on what works for you. That's why I'm giving you the template. The other thing that I might need to know as I'm talking with my principal is, well, how are people getting to me? Are they seeing me in the hallway? Are they catching me and sending me emails? Are we providing professional development and they're connecting me with me in that way? Or is it during PLCs? Well, that's the smallest one. Guess why, guys? Because I can't be at PLCs. I'm watching their kids potentially. Are they catching me at the circulation desk? Am I on car duty? Right? How are they connecting with me? This gives me broad information because it's going to help me to know what is my best form of getting a response from my teachers. Make sense? You see why that question was there. That next question, what they asked me to do. What am I spending the majority of my time doing? Is it literacy based? Not in this case. It's 39% of my time is spent troubleshooting technology. I can find that out by quickly looking at this, right? It's not the only way. You guys can come up with different ways that you want to track your time, but you will have an eye-opening event if you just discipline yourself to do this 1 semester or 2 semesters. You're going to have some aha moments about how you spend your time in your library building. Some people like to just track everything on their calendar, but then you have to kind of aggregate that. And how quickly can you do that? So you come up with a system that works for you. I've also seen people who kind of do that, and every day before they go home, they would kind of reflect on their day, what they did, who they connected with, and they would put some data points there and collect the data that they needed. Now, again, you fill in the options with the things that affect you and what you're actually doing in the building, and it may change, right? You might think you're pulling resources or troubleshooting technology, but you're also, you know, getting training for testing. I think I've got some questions on here. Yep, recruited for proctor for tests. So things that you're expected to do. So put all of those things on there so that you can kind of just see how much of the time of your building is spent on technology versus literacy. Maybe that's a definitely a good data point to take to your principal and just let them know, this percentage of my time is spent here versus there. Very eye-opening. And it gives you that data to be able to connect with your administration, to be able to advocate for what it is that you need to be able to make a bigger impact for your teachers and for your students. Because remember, they're our why. We're there for them. And then it also gives you the opportunity to look at what are you doing with your time. If you want to spend it, this is why I don't usually do fill in the blanks, but for this uh, purposes of this, I think you need one to be able to put just a word or two in that says, hey, what are we talking about? We're talking about a weather systems unit. I need to pull the resources. It hits this grade level. You can do that quickly and then always look at your spreadsheet. So do you feel like that would be helpful to have for you? So take some time. Remember, I told you I put the a copy of that on the Canvas shell for today. If you need it, if it does not open for you, I think again, I put this in my personal account so that you should be able to make a copy of it. But if it doesn't work for you, please email me and I'll make sure I update that. I'll put it in Teams so that I can make sure you can get to it through the UNCG portals. But I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to gather some data about how you are being effective in your building. You will note that there might be times you have to advocate for the time you have in the library, or advocate for a flexible schedule, or advocate to use your time differently in the building. And how do you do that without data, right? And so this is a way to kind of collect that eye-opening data that gives you those aha moments to be able to connect with. So the reason this is important is because it also helps us see how we're being used in the building, as I said earlier. And then once we know that, we can plan appropriate PD to see what teachers are needing. Do they need us to troubleshoot technology? What can I do to enable them? Do they need us to prepare and support units? Great. How can we collaborate at a higher level? So it's all about the process of understanding what our teachers need to be able to move forward. Does that make sense? All right. So we have a few things here I want to talk about. And the first one of those is, let me get my note up here, is the difference in pedagogy versus andragogy. Now, if you've been a teacher before, we all know what pedagogy is. It's the science and art of teaching, isn't it? Well, if we look at andragogy, that's a fancy name for teaching adult learners and how that looks potentially very different. And that we address that different. One of the things we need to do when we're doing professional development is make sure that we are training our teachers to utilize information in a way that they want to implement it in their own instruction. And so we have to think about how we can make everything we teach them relevant, right? So before I give you a few examples, let's look at the difference in pre-K students versus adults. Pre-K to 12 students or students in your schools, they depend on instruction. The younger, the more they need it, right? More guidance they need. Adult learners, many times, are self directed. They're also very distracted. They've got testing to do, they've got grading to do, they've got all kinds of things to do. Their plates are full. So we have to make sure what we are teaching our adults is relevant to their instruction tomorrow. What can they use today in their class, tomorrow in their class? We also need to make sure it's important that they can apply it immediately. Not because if you teach it today and they don't use it for 6 months, they've forgotten it. I think we're all that way, right? That's why we try to frame the program here in that same manner. Secondly, pre-K to 12 students need that structure. Everybody, let's do the same thing until we get started. Let's model exactly the same thing, and then we'll branch off. Adults are different. They don't need as much structure. They're adults. They've been through that process, right? Your older students kind of fit in that category as well. But what we do need to think about is how to connect it to what they are. So instead of, hey guys, we're going to learn how to use Destiny collections today, and we're all going to make a Destiny collection about volcanoes. Sound good? That is only good for your fourth grade because landforms are in the fourth grade curriculum, and they're the only ones who are going to really care. How do I make it more relevant to them? Have them sit in grade levels or in departments if you're secondary. Have them choose what's your next unit. Maybe it's water cycle in science. Maybe it's World War II history. Maybe it's all of a sudden I can't think, right? Um, Severe weather. I like science, so I'm going to navigate there. So forgive me for that. Maybe it's fiction versus nonfiction. We'll do an ELA topic for your youngers, right? Well, once they've chosen their topic, have them actually create a Destiny collection about that to use in their very next unit. They'll use it immediately. They'll be excited about the work they're doing because they'll feel like it's relevant and they'll feel like it's practical. That's how you engage your adult learners. Your students in the building have fewer life experiences to bring to the table, but your adult learners, those are abundant. They have good connections, and you, as the instructor, need to connect with those experiences. Also, your students are more accepting about what they've been told. They're like, sure, Miss Brewer said it, I believe it. Not your adult learners. You have to kind of they're suspicious. You have to kind of help them see that you know what you're talking about. Have you ever felt that way? They have to have confidence in you as the instructor. One of the ways to build that is to listen. I've gone into schools where nobody knew who I was, and I had to earn that respect. And one way that I earned that was I let them talk. They were all frustrated. They didn't have time for me to teach them what I needed to teach them. They already knew everything. They'd used it in the public library, blah, blah, blah. And I let them kind of talk in their groups about that. And then I get up and I'd say, okay, I need you to talk to me for a few minutes about what subjects you're getting ready to teach. So let's use the same example of maybe building a Destiny collection or using ebooks from your particular library. And so I listened. And so then I start to talk about different ideas, about how they can use it in their instruction, about lesson plans that they can connect with e-resources instead of print resources, depending on what it is I'm trying to teach them, right? How handy it is to have these different tools and how it can help solve some of their problems. So when you listen first and then you're able to answer their questions, all of a sudden they see you as a valuable source in the building. When you make it relevant and you help what you're teaching to solve problems that they have, automatic. You don't know what to teach them until you know what those problems are. Sometimes we can find that through the data we're collecting, through those forms I showed you earlier. Sometimes we learn that by just doing a survey and sending that out in maybe our weekly report or our weekly communication so that we can get some feedback about that. Not every teacher is going to need support in how to submit items in Canvas, but over COVID, everybody needed that, didn't they? All levels. And what does it look like at different levels? So how am I going to provide that PD? Well, we also need to think about how to get it in front of people and what levels. Do we want to have a beginning level and an advanced level? Because you have teachers and all of that. Your students are willing to explore lots of different subjects, but your adults, they want an immediate impact. In other words, they want to know, what are you teaching me now that I can use tomorrow? How is this going to make my life better? Why is this a good use of my time? So we've got to make sure that that's how we're looking at and teaching what it is that we're teaching adults. Okay. So just a review, it has to be relevant. What are they learning now that they can use tomorrow in their lessons to immediately impact student learning or student achievement, right? We also need to connect with their prior knowledge, knowing the curriculum, knowing how to make sure we sort them into groups to make sure it's effective. And then also, the adults in your building often identify with content that's emotionally driven. Would you believe that? So, connecting with what you see happening at the school, or data has a face, talking about students that fit those different criteria, because you all know those students I'm talking about. Um, but drawing on real life experiences to show connection to the content that you're teaching them is important. And then weave in opportunities to make them interactive. When they leave, they have everything they need to be successful. When they leave, they've had experience using the tool, so then they're more confident using it in their own instruction. You see where I'm coming from? It helps them pay more attention and become more engaged with what you're teaching. Also, encourage exploration. Don't just tell them to click here, click here, click here. We can all follow a sheet if it's all about the clicking, right? But to give them time to explore different areas to see how it can impact and apply to them is huge. Making sure that we can teach them how to problem solve in it as well. And more importantly, we've done kind of a survey or something at the beginning to find out that what we're teaching them is relevant, right? So now, guess what we need to do? We also need to teach them what it is that we need to do, how they're going to use what we taught them in their own lessons. You see why that's important? If we taught them how to do both pieces, we know that what they need is important. At the end, I need to know how they're going to use it in their own instruction. If I don't do both pieces, how do I know what I'm teaching is effective? Again, this is about a data point. It's about gathering information and making those connections. So think about important ways and engaging ways that you can do that, even in if online training, right? All of your trainings are not in person. So if we're going to do something digital like we're doing today, how are we going to gather that feedback at the end? Have them share examples. What kind of ways can we do a parking lot at the end? In person, it's easy. We've got Post-its and chart paper. Online, we've got Padlet. You know, I like my Padlet. But there are lots of different tools that will do that. You could do a Jamboard. You could do a Google, depending on whatever kind of resources you have in your district. Make sense? I want to encourage you guys, this process of preliminary survey to find out what students or teachers need as you're training them, and then feedback at the end to see how they're going to apply their learning. That is what I want you to put. That's the best practice you need to put into play everywhere you go, every unit you teach, every PD that you have needs to involve those same pieces. Right? All right. So there's also a mind shift in the whole idea of professional development versus professional learning. Okay. We have all, and I say everyone in this class, has had some type of professional development. Have you ever been in a training and it seems disconnected? It's mandated by your district or it's mandated by your principal, and you're like, this does not apply to me. Why am I here? You spend more time being frustrated than you do learning anything, right? Do you ever feel like it's not aligned with your teacher's priorities because it's been just it works for some people, but not at your level, not with your students, those kinds of things. Maybe it's before the school starts. I personally have been involved in so many of this because you've heard me talk about the fact that I was in a school that was taken over by the state team. Well, that state team that took over my school, their answer for everything was PD. We had PD on Friday nights. We had PD on Saturday, all day long training sessions on Saturday. It was, we were all burned out because we didn't see that it was relevant. It was disconnected. It wasn't things we could use in the classroom tomorrow, right? And it also varied in its quality and its content depending on who our instructor was. I didn't have confidence in the people teaching me. So you've got to also earn that confidence. Have we all been a part of that? Have you all felt that professional development kind of deep sigh again? So we've got to think differently about what we are doing in the building. And we need to think about the needs of our learners And that's where professional learning, that's a difference in title, but it includes the opportunity for participants to be in part of designing their own professional learning. In other words, I'm not going to train you on something that's mandated and required. I'm going to train you on the things that I know you need to learn to apply to your own instruction to help your students be more successful. I'm also going to align my trainings, my resources on what you need in the building as teachers, what your priorities are for your district and for your school level, and if they are mandated and required. So maybe it's CEU credits, right? There's the new portal that everybody just needs to know how to do that. How can I flip it? How can I change the training? Here's a step-by-step, click and walk through it yourself. And then we come and we have just a brief meeting about how we can troubleshoot that, because that should be something that's pretty self-explanatory, or maybe can be done during a module, a online module through your Canvas or your learning management system in your district. So think about the best way to deliver the content that you need, parts of it that you can flip, and how you can make the most impact to help connect the important things, that the FaceTime you have with those teachers, how you can make it the most impactful that it can be to support what they can do in the classroom and make it relevant. Also, think about ways to make it continuous. So how do you build on what they learned in the last PD to move forward? Make sense? Maybe you're doing a goose chase and you're having them move from station to station to station to learn something new. Maybe you've got a social studies, a science, or you're doing things with a doc cam and you're doing things over here with a different piece of technology. One of my favorite kinds of PD to do is something like a goose chase or stations. If you have a maker space in your building, I've alluded to this when Matt was here. Have you ever had a maker space in your building and nobody uses it? Or the teachers just don't know what's in there? What I did to support teaching my school librarians what was in the building is, or what was in our maker space, or what was available to put in their maker space, was I had these different stations set up. And I had Ozobots here, I had Lego station there, I had a found treasures, as Matt calls them, in this area, and we did some online digital things with bookcreator.com in this area. So I had all different kinds of things. And so I had my groups do a goose chase with that. And so in their groups, they had to travel to each station and come up with a way that they could connect it to their school, connect it to the instruction, how they could integrate it with a particular unit that they taught with fourth grade or eighth grade or whatever they were doing. And I did an elementary group, a middle school group, and a high school group. They were so excited when they left. They said, Tammy, this is one of the first times that I've left really understanding how I can make the maker space work in my building, because the teachers needed to be able to see what was available. The teachers needed to be able to see what they could use in their instruction, etc. After that, they were starting to use the maker space in more frequently, because they knew the resources that were there that could support their instruction. They saw it as a valuable space in the school, a valuable resource, because they can make that connection. We can talk about it all day, but you guys know, remember our cone of learning, once you pick it up and you can start to play with it and manipulate it, it becomes more valuable. That is what professional learning is. It's needful, it's applied, and it's continuous. Make sense? What kind of professional training do you want to do for your teachers? Do you want it to be this professional development, old school, the OG, right? With required no alignment to teachers. They could not necessarily aligned. They're not necessarily able to make impact immediately, all of those pieces, or impactful, engaging, connected to things they need to know to use in their class tomorrow. You think about which you would prefer to be a part of, and then you be the teacher, you be the provider, you be the instructor of that kind of learning to your teachers. Make sense? Nobody wants to be lectured to 24/7. That's why I hate recording. Sorry, you're stuck with me this week. I think you can see why that's impactful. Also, I want you to think about workshop-based professional development. If I'm signing up for that ahead of time, great. But studies have proven that when a person goes to a workshop and then they don't actually use what they've gone to the workshop in for months or weeks, even, they're not necessarily going to apply it. It just kind of goes on a shelf in your brain somewhere. Studies have actually shown that on average, 20 separate instances of practice are what your teachers need before they master a skill and be able to use it effectively. So you teach it, you have them do it in class, you have them apply it to their learning, you have them share it out the next time they come to PD. What was something we learned last time that you were able to put into practice in your libraries, in your classrooms, in your instruction with your students? And they're gonna also go wow, and have some aha moments. It's a great opportunity. So workshops that are one-time sit and gets are very rarely, rarely. Okay. But remember that we're moving on this mind shift from structured seminars, workshops, lectures to more book clubs, online webinars, things that are asynchronous, kind of, I call them a la carte. I know I need to learn how to log in. Oh, I got the login. I need to know how to implement. So your training modules can be broken down into different pieces. Professional learning is also more small group instead of whole group. Professional development, there's individual doing all the work for themselves. Professional learning is generally more collaborative and interactive. It's also individualized. Your professional development looks very different. It's very passive, one size fits all. I'm not necessarily personalizing it or individualizing it. And learning for that is mandated, not actually applied many times. In your professional learning, it's initiated by teachers by what they need to know. So we're going to be able to connect with it more. It's also focused on your students, on student learning. So when I do a professional learning, I'm teaching teachers how to do something that they're going to apply to their instruction to do with students. Great, right? Professional development, a lot of times, the OG professional development is focused on just on teachers. They don't always even make a connection to how it's going to impact students. Have you been a piece of that? I'm not saying always, but it happens more often than you would think. And then overall, professional learning holds teachers to a higher standard and encourages them to take responsibility for their own development and what they can see and being engaged in how they can do that. I've had OG librarians come into trainings and they're like, "Oh, Tammy, what do you have us doing today?" And I'm like, "Well, you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to be engaged with what we're learning, not back here taking notes or falling asleep or doing whatever." And so they would roll their eyes at me when they walked in. But when they left, they gave me a hug or they said, "Tammy, thank you so much. This was just at least valuable. I didn't waste my time coming downtown today." In Guilford County, they may have to travel 45 minutes to an hour to just get to a central location to be able to have PD. So they really didn't want to waste their time, no matter how tired they were. Once they got engaged, they actually had a good time. Um, the one exact instance I'm thinking about is when I was teaching about breakouts, digital breakouts, and we were doing that using Battle of the Books titles, and we had them breaking out, understanding they all knew the books because they were all doing Battle of the Books. And I had media specialists in my district actually lead it, and I went around and just monitored and supported and facilitated the instruction. And I'm telling you, they were all doing breakouts and black lights and locked this and that, and they were using the titles of the books to support that with their Battle of the Books titles. So really pretty amazing. When you see it work, you just get excited. And those old OG folks that were just like, "I just need to sit and get Tammy," and you see them get excited, it's been successful. Also, though, professional learning communities are communities of teachers that are in the same content area who create instructional innovations. They support each other during their implementation stage and they reflect on results. Do your schools offer them the opportunity to have these PLCs? It happens. And many times you're teaching the kids while it happens. But those communities of teachers serve as coaches for each other. You don't have one of those in your building. You're the only librarian. So we have to do that many times virtually. As a district leader, I would provide those opportunities with mentor-mentee programs, with regional meetups, and obviously doing things digitally now became a great opportunity for them. But research shows us that effective professional learning communities, or PLCs, can change teacher practice and increase student achievement. We've got to give them the opportunity to have that. So it is important. In addition, several studies have found that student achievement is higher in schools with strong professional communities where there's collective responsibility, collaboration, and congeniality among teachers, and that is fostered, that collaboration is fostered, it is encouraged, it is the basis for how we build instruction in our buildings and modeled for our students. And that's really what the future workforce is going to look like. So we've got to be able to do that. And these are not new studies. These have been around forever. So I'm going to ask you to do something for me. At this point, I would normally break you up into groups and we would do lots of thinking and brainstorming. So I want you to look at what we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you to do some brainstorming for me. I want you to think about what are the opportunities for school librarians to do PD in your building. What are the times when it's going to be effective? Are you going to plan a Tech Tuesday? Are you going to do a power half hour at lunch and teachers drop in on their free time to learn a new tool? That actually works very good at the secondary, middle, and high school level. I've seen that work nicely. Are you going to do a potty PD where you put the QR code at the in the bathroom and they can click it and they can either go to an online training at their leisure later, they can learn more about a topic, they can do a tech tool, that kind of thing when they get a minute, or they can sign up to come to something with you, right? And then also, what are the characteristics you need to be successful as a leader in your building? Think through that. Do you need to be flexible? Do you need to be welcoming? Do you need to be rigid? I hope not. And do you need to know what it is teachers need to learn? And you can't just say, what do you want to learn? Because they don't know either. So you have to think strategically about how you create your surveys to be able to give them options that they might want to learn about, to get their kind of comfort level at using different resources, maybe using Destiny Collections, using your ebook resource. How are they using the resources? I think NC Ed Cloud resources all day long. Do they know how to use Britannica? Do they know how to use Gale resources? Or are they just using the Google? How are they, how do you know what they know? If you just say, what do you want to learn more about? That's not good enough. You got to be more specific to get to the nitty gritty about what it is. Okay. And then what are some ways that we can offer or lead that training in your specific sites? So what I'm going to offer you the opportunity to do is this. I'll give you some time. Let me finish talking. I'm almost there. When I'm finished lecturing, then I'll close with that, okay? But what I'm going to ask you to do is think through these things. Some examples that I have for you are ed camps, planning conferences for your school to be able to do. Maybe you get people from the district office to help you on a PD day, and you've got one session looking at different levels, beginner, intermediate, high levels, about how to use a particular resource. Think about breakouts. I gave you a good example of that one. Or book clubs or reading clubs. Are you providing webinars or possibly recording how-tos to use specific resources that they can easily get through to pre-do or to pre-teach or to flip instruction, is the proper term, before they come to you as a whole group, so that they've at least got the preliminary things down. And I know you can't enforce it. You don't know that they've done it, but it's definitely something to give those opportunity to do. And then you have webinars, again, that can be a la carte as people need it, or you can do it live and synchronous like we do. And then your professional learning communities. If you get the opportunity to go to them, if you're on a fixed schedule, that's harder. So if you're trying to get in front of your students, in front of your faculty, for that professional learning community time, make it valuable because it will be rare. So let's talk some about some effective ways to present to your colleagues. Okay, guess what? Bring some snacks. For years, when I was at the district level, I had at least a granola bar and a bottle of water. It always came out of my pocket. I was providing for 130 people, so it wasn't a lot, but it was something. They're coming in after teaching all day, just like you guys. You're in your pajamas, you're eating popcorn, you're eating dinner. I get it. I can't do that, but you are. You can. But make it comfortable. Bring snacks. It doesn't have to be expensive. Also, make sure to tell teachers what they're going to be learning, your objective. Hopefully, you've seen me model that. What's the objective for why they're there and why, right? What they're going to be doing, why it's important for them to be learning it, and how they're going to be able to, how it's going to be able to impact their instruction and elevate their level of instruction to help students be successful. Whenever you focus it on the kids and point to why what they're learning is important, they're going to feel it's more valuable. And not only tell them, but show them. Next, be prepared, be organized. Don't waste people's time. I think the truth is you don't want your time wasted. So let's make sure that it's relevant and it's connected. If you're using a PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint is never someone's fan. I've given you some slides today with lots of text, but I'm not necessarily asking you to read it, am I? I was like, look at all this yellow on the screen. It's just something to grab your attention and show impact. Use more graphics, less verbiage. Unfortunately, I'm recording, or I would definitely be having you. I had a Kahoot planned for tonight, so obviously you got out of that one. Avoid reading what you've got on there. What can you do differently? Also have a backup for technology failure. Have either screenshots of what you want to show them. If it's a live document, I always like to go and do things live. You guys know that's why I share my screen and slide things over all the time. It's my style. Everyone has a different style, but also have a backup. I've been to conferences where the tech died. I couldn't show it live and I needed to have a backup with screenshots so that I could just access. It wasn't often, but if you don't have it, you're going to waste your time and theirs. And to make it safe for teachers to take risks. In other words, don't tech shame. You're going to have people who are walking in who don't know how to log in, and you're going to have people who can help be the leader at the table because they've done it 15 times. So make sure you either structure it for different levels of learners or you structure it to where those that are stronger can support those that are in need. Don't tech shame them. They won't want to come to what you're doing, right? So have that opportunity. Be inclusive there. And then let's talk more time to practice. I hope you see that's the kind of thing we try to do in our classes. That's one reason being synchronous is so much cleaner, I think, and more engaging because you'll be able to do that. And then we can just be those facilitators. Again, you guys are new. I was going to put this at the end. Always end with an evaluation for feedback. How are they going to use what you've taught them in their instruction? What are they going to do tomorrow? Don't just be a quick exit ticket that you don't get any information from. Find out how they're using it. Follow up with them. Say, hey, I saw you're going to do this with this next unit. Can I take pictures of that and put it in my next newsletter? So you're showing them how the engagement they have with what you're teaching them is going to be relevant for all. Make sense? And then again, I talked about your professional learning network early. Remember, guys, you're the only person in the building who does what you do. You're the only person in the building you don't that is the librarian. So you don't, in most cases, so you don't have a network of people in your building to do that with. So it can feel very isolated. The expectation is also for you to be a leader and a teacher to your faculty, not someone who's absorbing and getting information and content. So we've got to find places to feed ourselves. So all of these places I kind of listed at the beginning are those places that I want you to just go investigate for yourself. NCAT, Library of Congress, DPI, NCSLMA, NCTIES, ISL. All of these are, some of them are North Carolina, but not all. Library of Congress, ISL, ISTE, those are going to be great places for you to go to get internationally, wherever you might be, to be able to find connections to help yourself grow. Okay. And if you're not in North Carolina, look for the equivalent in your state. Make sense? All right. I'm challenging you guys to do that. Let me know what you find out. So the last thing I am going to ask you to do today, and you'll notice on your Canvas shell, there is a Padlet that says individual, and you'll see group. You guys are going to be the individual group today. And I have this set up, and I always try to put on it the list of what I expect you to do, so it's going to be on here. So what I want you to do is just post down here in the bottom right-hand corner is the opportunity to do that. Once you click it, you're going to fill in a few things for me. So I want to know how you're going to plan and share professional learning in your building. I want you to brainstorm it. When you're finished, I want you to look at what your other classmates are doing and see if there's anything you might want to try. And we'll review this briefly before we get started next week when you come to class. But first off, talk to me about the topics that you want to lead professional learning on. Just brainstorm a few. Is it Destiny Collections? Is it using NC Ed Cloud resources in your instruction? Is it how to get to them? Truthfully, they've made it so hard to get to those resources. And is it how to use Padlet? I don't know. What do you want to teach them? What do you think are some potential topics that might be important? Using Canvas, right? How to use that effectively, training, setting up modules, ever how you want to teach it. The second thing I want you to do, you can break these up. Please don't just do one paragraph, but break them up with headers or bullet points. Let's talk to me about what characteristics you think you need to have as a school librarian to be successful leading professional learning opportunities with your faculty. What do you need to do to be able to engage with them? Again, I'm doing this in Padlet so that we get a few bullet points, not a book. You don't have to write a book here. The third bullet point here is I want you to list ways that school library media coordinators can offer that PD. And those are the things I was listing before. Is it Potty PD, where you're putting something on, you've got QR codes linked, it's interactive, and it's you're putting it somewhere. I've seen what to do while you're in the loo. I don't know why there's so many potty ones out here now. Are you doing a power half hour where you're inviting people to come in during their lunch break? If you're secondary, that's easier than if you're elementary. Are you doing a Tech Tuesday? Are you doing in the morning before school starts? Are you recording it and putting it in your newsletter? Tell me ways that you think you're going to be able to offer that PD in your school setting. And then also, I want you, lastly, to tell me how you're going to organize and market that professional learning that you're leading with teachers, to encourage them to attend, to encourage them to engage. Marketing is a huge piece of what we've got to do in the library to get people engaged. Make sense? So we will, again, review this next week when you come to class prior to starting with our presentations. So please take a moment, think through it. Again, it's 4 bullet points. I don't expect it to be a long narrative, but give me a few ideas that you have. If you have examples of things you've done before that were successful, share those things out. This is our way of doing that in our current alignment with the recording this week. Okay? Normally, I like you to chat about it, but here, we're going to do it that way. If you have questions about that, just email me and I'll give you that. And then finally, to wrap everything up for tonight, our timeline, your collaborative units are due next week, April 22nd. I can't wait to see what you put together. Half of you will be presenting them on the 22nd, the other half on the 29th. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. There's a link here and in your Canvas shell for today for you to put your final unit plan. It's also on the assignment. So go there to post it. We'll post them there for purposes of sharing out, and we're going to post them in Canvas for the purposes of grading. So remember, 2 places. Once in Canvas, so I can grade your unit plan, and once on the Padlet. And the Padlet gives you instructions about what to include in your post, what to include in your presentation, and where and how we're going to do that. And there are also some sample unit plan examples here and linked in our Padlet for today, or our Canvas shell. I also have this link, I believe, this tells you which day you're going to be presenting. I believe I also have this on the Padlet as well. If not, it will be there later today. Last thing I want to go over, just to work quickly, is what your capstone is going to look like in your 693 class. Many of you are very close to being ready for 693, or you're in there this semester, right? I think I've got 4 of you in 654 that are in 693. But I wanted to give you a good example of what a portfolio looks like, just so that you have an overview. We are also doing a training April 30th, I believe, that will walk you through this. So if you're getting ready for your portfolio and you want some idea of what it's like, that's what we will be going over there. How to register, what the capstone looks like, what assignments you're going to be doing. I'll go into all of those things in detail. Just a few things. Your final portfolio is a website. This is Jessica. She was so sweet to let me use hers as an example. She has a link to her resume here, which has a link to her praxis and her transcript. You specifically do not have to put those. You can just say, see, UNCG representative will provide that for you, so you don't have to publish it. Then there is a professional growth plan with your goal statements. If your goals are to attend different conferences and present at different conferences so you can move across that evaluation model, put those on here. We're looking for your professional practice and for your professional growth. She's done a good job. You notice it's just a few bullet points. These are things you can work on ahead of time. And then you'll see 2 pieces. You'll see AASL standards. Our group this year is listed that as licensure, and you'll see PLOs, program learning outcomes. There are 2 different audiences who will be looking at your portfolio. One of those audiences is for your license. Remember, you're getting a K-12 educator license and you're getting a Master's of Library and Information Science. To get your license, we have to meet all of your work or match all of your work and your application to the AASL standards. That's what we spend most of our school library classes talking about. And so you'll notice here, she has listed her standard and the substandards for the first one with different pieces of evidence to support it. Okay, guess what, guys? We're going to do all this in class. This is copy and paste. Looks like a lot, but you're going to copy and paste this from the activity that we're going to do in this planning document. This planning document is at the bottom of your working plan of study, and you've been able to access this the whole time. The other thing you're going to notice is, we go back, in class, you are actually going to spend time, you know me, I'm going to break you up into groups. Group 1 is going to do standard 1. And so you're going to leave class that week and you're going to have this all completed. Now, it's not what you learned, but it is the rest of her portfolio, which shows how she aligned her work to the standards. And you notice something here. She's got 1.1 and 1.4. She got those from right here. So she's aligning the work that she's done with the content. She's talking about what she learned, and she's talking about her impact on students and best practice. This is the meat of what we want to know. We know what you've done because we graded it. So we want to see that the things that you've learned in that process through those assignments, you're able to apply that learning to your future library program. What are you going to do in your program because of what you learned here? Make sense? And guess what, guys? You're going to leave with how it aligns and your impact, at least a starting point, right? A bullet point to help you get started about all of the standards. And so you're the expert in one, and then you'll be able to share this document. So we're going to do some things to support you in that. The last thing I want to show you is a checklist for your portfolio. And again, I think I have put all these in the Canvas shell for today, but this portfolio peer review checklist right here, this is important. This is what your portfolio is going to need. Again, if you're coming on the 30th, I'll be doing a training at that point. I'll give you all of these materials as well. If you're wanting to prepare and start your portfolio, it's going to be a website. It's going to include these things. And this is a great example, thanks to Jessica. The other thing that will be there are your PLOs. Those are your program learning outcomes. So here's her, what are the PLOs? And then guess what? Inside, she lists them with all of the talking points. She has examples, and she has her reflection, and she references that. Which one one she's talking about here. That's going to help your evaluator make sure that you're making connection and help move your process along. So that's just a quick overview, but I wanted you to at least see what the capstone portfolio looked like and what we're going to do to support that. Now, you should have received an end of course survey. Those supervisor or those evaluations are very important. We listen to those. So please make sure you take a minute to fill those out. The good, the bad, the ugly, that's fine. We can't make changes to our curriculum and our content unless we know its relevance to you and your programs. So we want to hear what you have to say. So please make sure if you can take a few minutes to fill out that end of semester survey, that really, we listen to all of those. They become part of our evaluations at the end of the semester. So we want to be able to do that. If you have questions, please email me those follow-up questions. I'll be glad to follow up with those and connect with you, and then we'll see each other next week. Okay, so I apologize again for tonight. This is one of my favorite classes to teach in person, so I'm not exactly happy about recording it, but I hope you found a few tools tonight that you're going to be able to put in your toolbox to help you be a stronger school librarian, help you understand what it is, how effective your time's being in your building, what grade levels you're supporting. Definitely, if you could discipline yourself to try just for a month or a semester to try to do that Google form for yourself, I'm challenging you. I think you would have some aha moments about your program. And maybe we can take a minute next semester, next week to share out if you have other ideas besides that form. It's not the only way. It's just one option to see what others are doing. So we'll see if we have some time to chat about that next week. Okay. So again, thank you very much, and I will look forward to seeing you next week.